So we figured out where our leak is coming from in our basement. Let me just show you. So it looks like what they did is, you can see that line right there. It goes all the way down. They had plywood in that spot up against the siding, then spray foamed between the top of the plywood. You can see little spray foam chunks there. Tried to spray foam that joint between the top of the plywood and the siding. They then buried this wall underground. So this is just siding on a wood framed wall. This whole wall is wood framed with a walkout basement. So they put the plywood up against it, then buried it. You can see where the grade used to be out here. And again, along that line, it was all underground. I thought this was a concrete wall in the back, obviously. Had no idea that the siding went went down all the way like it does. So what my assumption is that spray foam did nothing to keep moisture out. It's impossible with the gaps between the siding and the plywood. You just can't seal it properly, and spray foam isn't a sealant anyway. So what happened is the plywood actually became like a funnel. So all of the moisture went between the plywood and the house. It was trapped there, and like a funnel, all the moisture is obviously going to go down to the bottom, and it's going to sit there because the plywood was up against it. There's nowhere for the water to go. So obviously it rotted that whole corner. This whole section along here where the plywood was is rotted. The worst corner is right there, but you'll also see over here is the other worst spot, and that's basically, if you follow that line on the wall, that's where the plywood ended. So again, the plywood acted like a funnel, and all of the moisture landed right there and was trapped. It stayed there, so that's why that was so rotten. And the moisture just wept its way across to basically right about there, where you can actually see where it starts to dry up. So this is a structural wall here. This wall is supporting all of our floor joists on the main floor. And so this is the bottom of that structural wall, which is obviously quite concerning. And you can see, what I find interesting is you can see those two little pieces of wood there, those two little 2x4s. Those are not that old. I'm going to guess that they were put in right before we moved in. So again, this was part of the Band-Aid approach that they did. They put those pieces of wood in there from the inside, obviously. So to put that wood there, they would have had to expose things on the inside. So they actually saw, or someone saw, all of this rot going on, and instead of dealing with it, they just put a Band-Aid in there, just put a couple of 2x4s in there. I'm guessing to secure the drywall on the inside, because they couldn't screw anything to the studs, because they're like cork, they're rotten completely. So it tells me that someone knew about the issue, and I suspect that their approach was, well, we'll just hide it. We'll just bury it and hide it, literally, which just ramped up the problem even more. Since I'm under here, you can see the deck. I've never seen a deck, especially this high, framed with 2x6 joists on 24-inch centers, which is just ridiculous. You can see that's a pretty big span there. The beam, if you'd call it that, again, is a couple of 2x6s. You can see the joint in the so-called beam right there. And then they've got a cantilever over here, probably about 4 feet, which exceeds the code anyway. You can see how, I don't know if you can see on film, but that, what they call as a beam is bent. It's down on this side. So structurally, it's failing. And they had the stairs there, which is where a lot of the weight would come with the stairs. That's probably why that's bent. So I'm guessing that whoever built this deck is probably the same carpenter that did this work down here. So to me, it appears that it's someone that has no idea what they're really doing and is just kind of winging it. And now I'm left to, or we are left to deal with the impact and stress and all that stuff that goes with it. So that's where we are. You can see all the dirt that came out of here. So if you're a handyman, untrained, please don't wing it, especially when it comes to structural stuff like this. This is quite scary, actually. But we'll get it dealt with somehow.